Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by Legacy FC Middleweight champion, Bubba Bush. Bubba, how are you?
I'm excellent. Couldn't be better.
Bubba, how does it feel to finally have that Legacy FC Middleweight belt around your waist? It's a title that you've been chasing for a while now since you lost to Andrew Craig way back in 2011. How does it feel to finally be champion?
It is surreal. It's the first time I've ever had, a dream that I chased for, months and years and sacrificed a lot for and actually achieved. So everything you see in the movies and you think it would be like, it is.
Now, what did you do to celebrate the victory? Did you celebrate like any other victory, or did you have a special celebration because this was a very big win for you?
Well, we celebrate traditionally with pancakes at the MMA. Try to avoid the bars in that scene. So we went over to Donovan Griffin's house. He's the manager of the Fox and the Hound there in Houston, and one of our sponsors hosted out there. So we went over to his house, had some pancakes, and watched the rest of the fights, actually, because I didn't get to see them, so I missed a lot of the fights. We watched my fight again, and we watched, Holly and Ray and everybody else fight, the other title fight, Huerta and Hobar, so that's how we celebrated. Then we got back into town, and I flew out to Boston and got to see my new nephew, who was born on the 22nd.
Excellent, excellent. Now, where are you keeping the belt? Is it at the gym, on the wall somewhere, or is it at your house? So where exactly is that at?
Right now it's at my house, next to me, and it's got its own lounge chair. But we are building a shadow box to put it up at the gym to promote things there.
I see. To get that middleweight title, you had to defeat Larry Crow at Legacy FC 21 2 weeks ago. July 19th was the date of that fight. You won the fight by second round TKO. How pleased were you with your performance in the fight?
I felt really good in the fight. I was, super happy with how it went. Game plan worked well. I needed to do everything went smoothly. Going back and watching the fight, I was kind of horrified. It wasn't bad by any means, but I didn't look as good as I felt.
You said after you went home or you went out with your team that you actually watched the fight. How many times besides that have you gone back and watched the fight?
I've probably seen it 5 or 6 times. There's just some mistakes there to learn from and some ugly half shots and things, but overall, I listened to my coaches and got it done. So I'm not too in the dumps, but we're already training for the next time.
Going into that fight, a lot of people felt like if you were able to get it to the ground like you were able to do, you would win the fight easily. They thought, if the fight was going to remain standing, that Larry Crow would have a pretty good chance of, being able to pull off a victory against you. Just curious, what was the game plan going into the fight, and how well do you feel you executed it?
The game plan was no surprise. He knew what I was trying to do. I knew what he was trying to do, and we both just had to go out there and implement. And I got the upper hand there, but I figured he would run a little more than he did. I'm glad that he's got a lot of fight in him, and he wanted to come forward and push forward. So that actually ended up helping me out. But I thought he would dance away a little more, and the plan was just get inside, get him against the fence, get the takedowns there, and do damage when I got on the ground. So that worked out. I'd like to think that if it did stay standing longer, if he was able to stuff the shop, that it wouldn't be as one-sided as people think. But we'll hopefully never know.
Sure. What exactly was your corner telling you in between the first and second round? What kind of feedback were you getting from your corner? And after that first round, what kind of reads were you getting from Larry Crow to allow you to do what you did in the second round?
Between rounds, I got a couple of things from my corner. One was they tested my blood sugar, said it was perfect, so they said, good to go there. They gave me positive feedback, great round, doing exactly what you need to be doing, keep it up. And then Dave gave me some very just specific technical advice on posting up and actually doing damage. We're getting to the takedowns, but he didn't actually do any damage in the first round. I let him hold me down, let him tire himself out. And so he was giving me some advice on just cross-face and breaking out and doing damage. But basically he said, keep it up, your round, you got this. And then Larry, I felt like was pretty tired coming out of the first round, and definitely when he came out for the second, I felt like I was fresher than he was. So just pushed the pace.
Why exactly didn't you decide to go for a submission in the late or middle second round before you had finished the fight? Because you were just hammering away. You were in a dominant position, mounted on him, just completely pounding at him. Just curious, why did you decide not to go for a submission and just keep hammering away? Was it you just didn't want to lose the position? Was your corner telling you just to keep hitting? Why exactly didn't you try to, maybe change it up and go for a submission? Just curious.
On a lighter note, because there's no submission of the night bonus, but in reality, if you get in there and just try to sink a choke or an arm triangle or something, and you don't finish, if they happen to be better than you think at getting out of it or resisting it, you're probably more tired than they are. A lot of times you're the one squeezing, you're the one working, and they come out of it. And then, you get to the end of the round and you have accomplished nothing. You're basically even. They come out the next round, and it's round zero. When you're on top and you have the position and you're striking, if you don't give a position, they're going to get more and more tired. You're not. And every strike you land is just, it's wearing down that endurance bar. So early in the fight, I really prefer to beat them up a little bit. If I'm going to submit someone, it's probably going to be later in the rounds, when they're worn down.
Were you surprised about how well he was able to take the shots that you were laying on him? He took a lot of heavy shots that you were landing in the mount position. Were you surprised by how resilient he was to take those shots for as long as he did?
No, he's a beast. He's a tough guy, so I wasn't at all. I heard him. The fourth or fifth one actually hurt him. You can tell the difference between when you're hitting him and when he's actually rocked and, he turns over and doesn't know where he is for a second. I guess it was a little surprising how fast he bounced back from that and became coherent and was able to, turn his hips out and intelligently defend himself. But I expected him to be a rock. So it was good. I knew it would take a lot, and it did, but just kept dishing it out. Mm-hmm.
You were fighting in Larry Crow's hometown. He's from Houston, Texas. How good did it feel to go into enemy territory and kind of rain on the parade, I guess you could say? How good did it feel to go in to a hostile environment and get the win?
It's always fun. I don't know. It's not super hostile. Houston will be as much a hometown for me, I hope, in the future as it is for him. But, we're not too far. But there is a certain aspect of he definitely had more fans there. He definitely had some louder cheering, and it's always good to be the upset victory and take that home. It's really nice. To a lesser degree, it's not so much sticking it to Houston as it is to just represent College Station. We don't have a huge MMA scene right now, but we're growing, and we've got some fights coming to town and hosting some CDM fights here, and a lot of our amateurs are up and coming. So it's nice to have a solid, to establish that and to prove that we have a solid program here. BVMA is becoming an actual force.
Mm-hmm. This fight was a long time coming. I think you were scheduled to fight him maybe 2 or 3 times before this fight actually took place. When you got done, with the fight, was this the fight that you thought was going to happen? Maybe when you were preparing, maybe 2 or 3 times ago, was this the fight that you had always expected when you looked at the matchup between you and Larry?
It really was. A year and a half ago when we first set out, it said, "Hey, you want to fight Larry?" And sure, that was my game plan. That's what we hoped it would look like. The year and a half made me nervous because he had a year and a half to game plan for me. And, what I'm going to do is not going to change that much, from fight to fight. As long as I'm fighting a pure striker, that's smart move is a smart move. So I knew he had a year to work on his wrestling and really game plan for that. So it made me a little nervous, but it also gave me time to just really get in great shape and get ready for it. Mm-hmm. So it was what I needed to do.
Mm-hmm. After the fight, you told Pat Miletich that you're ready to make the jump to the big show. You said that after this performance, you felt like you're ready to make it to the UFC. Why do you feel that now's the right time for you to make that jump?
I think any fighter feels that it's always the right time for that jump. That's where we're all headed and trying to get to, the even bigger show. Legacy is a big show, but UFC is the goal for most people. And I'm really happy at Legacy. I love fighting here, and I hope I'm going to keep fighting here, so I'll probably do a title defense here. But that's a good positive goal. So I think there's nothing better to do than ride the momentum of a big win like that. I've had a 6-fight win streak, excluding the disqualification, which was a clear win, just a DQ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that Artinas-Young fight. It looks like you consider that a win, and Legacy obviously considered that a win because, they gave you a title shot 2 fights later. So, how do you deal with that fight? Do you just consider that as a win that just happens to have a loss next to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tough to deal with sometimes, but it's absolutely. I mean, I think if you really look at my fight career, I'm 7-1. I'm not 6-2. I think Artinas landed 1 punch in that fight, and it was over. It just got called for hitting him in the back of the head. But he tried to get up 2 or 3 times, and it wasn't going to happen. So I absolutely consider it a win, and even my management, he said it's not a big deal. Like, it looks good. It basically counts as a win. But then he came back later and said, well, your record notwithstanding, we've got to get a couple more fights, a couple more wins here, get some more momentum back up. So yeah, I'm really glad that they gave me that title shot so soon after. But I definitely felt like I didn't, I wasn't undeserving because I get disqualified.
While we're on the subject of your record, I noticed that there's a gap between your debut and your second fight. Your debut fight was April of 2007, and then your second fight was July of 2010. Why the gap? Why that 3-year layoff in between fights?
Well, I originally started MMA just because I missed wrestling so much, and I wanted to get back on the mat. And then 9 months after starting MMA, I just wanted to test where I was at, so I took a fight. It was more of a bucket list kind of thing, a novelty kind of thing, and then I took the fight, and I just realized if you're not doing this full time, these guys are training, some of them full time, they're coming in there to kill you. It's not something to be taken lightly, and I wasn't ready to push it to that level, so I went out and then did, got a job and did some things for a while. And then I came back, and that was one thing the Lord blessed in my life and continually allowed me to do and succeed at was, grappling and training and fighting. And so a few years later, I just decided that's what I wanted to do with my life, is pursue professional fighting, and I started doing it full time, not full time, but more aggressively. And that's when I got back in the scene, 2010, and started actually fighting more consistently and training more consistently. So now recently, in the last month, I've actually gone full time to where this is my day job.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that next, since you brought it up. Why did you decide that right now is the right time to go full-time? Is it because the rest of the guys are, training all the time, and you feel that, maybe you're at a disadvantage if you're not doing the same thing? What exactly led you to make the decision to pursue this full-time?
Absolutely. There's a lot of factors involved, a lot of things in my life coming to a point where it made it possible. But one thing was, if I ever got another title fight, I really felt with Andrew Craig, I was working 8 hours a day, I was managing a store, and then I was coaching for 2 hours, and then I was training afterwards. So I'm cramming what should be 2 or 3 sessions a day into one long training session. Then I'm having to do my conditioning either before or after my skill work, and it's just a huge disadvantage because you're mentally drained, you're physically drained, and you're not giving it all. And then I'm going against guys that are training, day in, day out, and competing at their level. And I just really felt like, given my full attention, I would be better. And I didn't want to lose another fight because I didn't give it my all. So I said, I kind of promised myself if I ever got another title fight, I would quit my job before that fight camp was over and, put more into it so that I wouldn't have to. I never wanted to lose another fight just because my training wasn't where it needed to be.
What has allowed you to pursue this full time? Is it, Legacy's paying you more money, you're getting more money through sponsorships, maybe you got a job at your gym, but you're still full-time around MMA? What exactly has allowed you to pursue this full-time financially?
Right. Hey, Mick takes great care of us. There's constant little increases, and it's the best place to be in Texas. So it's definitely, that helps. I'm not making enough off fighting right now that I can live off of it. The other half of that, other than increased sponsors and getting big time with Legacy, is the gym. Kind of like you said, I was able to buy out my partners in the gym, and just I need to pour more of my attention into that. And while that is a job and takes an inordinate amount of time, it's on the mats. I'm in the gym, I'm next to it, I'm around it, I'm coaching, I'm training, and I'm a lot more freed up. My time isn't as bogged down, as linear. I can train certain times and train other people certain times and mix it around as needed. So it gives me a lot of freedom to take 2 weeks and go to Austin, go to Houston, train somewhere else, fly to different camps if I need to. Whereas before, being at a 9 to 5, you cannot do that. You are locked down, and somebody else tells you your schedule. So it's definitely helped it out. Now, I'm not making what I was before. I'm stepping down, but I felt like also I'd saved enough to where I can be poor for a while and I can chase my dreams, and that's going to be worth it.
Definitely. How many fights are left on your contract with Legacy?
None. Mick and I are just kind of on an agreement. I'm sticking with him. I told him I'm with you until Zuffa calls, and same thing. So I haven't signed anything with Mick in a while.
So basically, all these fights, the Artinas Young fight, the John Kirk fight, the Larry Crow fight, have just basically all been one bout agreements.
At one point, I had a 3-fight contract, but I'm loyal to Mick, so I'm not going anywhere. I don't think he's too worried about it right now.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. All your fights have been with Legacy, so
every single one, absolutely.
Yeah, you're definitely a loyal guy. Now, you mentioned that your goal, most like every other fighter, is to be in the big show. You want to be in the UFC. What do you think you have to do to get there? I mean, I know it's a very difficult thing to predict, but what, besides getting a win here and getting a belt, what more do you need to do to get Joe Silva's attention?
Right.
What do you think you need to do?
I've heard some feedback from management, and I'm sure if I was 8-0, it would help. If I didn't have the DQ loss, I'd have a lot more momentum. But probably just another quality win against maybe a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt or a ground specialist or someone who's been to the UFC and back. Someone who's well known. Just something like that might put me next level. Otherwise, just if I keep winning, eventually it's got to happen. We'll get the attention eventually.
Are you hoping that maybe Mick Maynard will bring in an ex-UFC guy? I mean, there's some guys floating around now, like a Kendall Grove, like a Scott Smith, guys who have been to the big show before and are now back on the regional circuit. Are you hoping that a guy like that becomes available and Mick Maynard brings him in, or would you be open to possibly fighting a guy that you were scheduled to fight, Noel Egan? He's still out there. What are you open to right now?
Yeah, open to anything. I'm not super worried about it right now. I think they're going to put someone good in front of me, and my job's going to be the same as it always is. Noel's undefeated, so that's a quality opponent. Anyone else they bring in, I'm sure he's going to be quality too. So just got to get another 2 good wins and get there. I don't think it has to be someone from outside the area. I think we've got great talent here in Houston.
Sure. The last season of The Ultimate Fighter, the season where John Jones and Chael Sonnen were coaches, that was a middleweight season. Did you try out for The Ultimate Fighter?
I didn't. I never have. I thought about it one time, but I didn't have enough. That means back when I had like 2 or 3 fights, I didn't have enough to actually try out. And then my coach from high school wrestling was actually on there, got second on one of the seasons, Chris McRae.
Yeah,
and Julian Lane is another guy from my high school wrestling team, was on 2 seasons ago. So I've had a bunch of people that I've trained a lot with do well on there, and it's one of those things where I'm like, well, I know I could do well, but I don't think I can make it in other ways.
Sure, I definitely hear what you're saying. And now, what are you going to do right now? Are you back training, back getting ready, maybe, who knows if Joe Silva's going to give you that call now? Are you back full time, getting into the swing of things, or are you still kind of taking it easy because you did just fight 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I'm probably taking it a little easier than I should. I'm still pretty relaxed this week, give another week maybe. But I've just started training a little bit again, working on the skills, working on some of the things that we need to do further out than a fight camp, and then when fight camp rolls around, we can ramp up everything else. But I've really got to focus on my gym right now because we're expanding, Brazos Valley Martial Arts that I just bought all of essentially and stake my future in. We're expanding. We got the belt, so I'm going to start getting that organized so that when the fight camp does come, I have everything ducks in a row so that I can step out and do a dedicated fight camp for that fight.
How much does it motivate you to see guys who come from the same area that you do, like an Andrew Craig, a guy that you fought once upon a time ago? How much does it motivate you to see those guys do well, and how much does it kind of inspire you to keep doing what you're doing so that maybe one day you'll be there with them?
Oh, immensely. I mean, of course, if I've fought at that level before, it gives me incredible confidence, and maybe a little too much. Some people, I'm sure there's been some pushback on the post-fight comment, but
sure.
If I'm out there training with Tim and Andrew and doing well, I know I can compete at that level. And all these guys have come from the same place I have and launched up there, and they've had great success. So it's incredibly encouraging, and I really appreciate them for doing that, for stepping out there and blazing that trail. We're just trying to follow in line and reach the same heights, do the same things, replicate.
Obviously, you said that you had some things at your gym that you're trying to get situated, but what's the timetable for return? When are you hoping that you'll get back in there and fight again?
Oh, man, I do not know. I like to have an 8-week fight camp if I can. So, if it depends who's available, but I haven't talked to Mick or anything, so I don't actually know.
Yeah, that's how we work. We always want to know what's next, There's always got to be a next, so, yeah.
Right. I just figured I'm kind of basking. I figured I'd give myself 2 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. We'll give you some time here. Bubba, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Absolutely. Just first and foremost, Jesus Christ has changed my life and been the most important part of it, and that's just nothing more rewarding in it, even including MMA, than serving him. So I'd like to encourage people in that. As far as sponsors go, Cellucor, been a huge supporter, the Fox and the Hound and VersaCarry. And I've got a couple of local shops, Fuzzy's Tacos and Hungry Howie's and Warhorse, that are supporting me and helping me to actually step out and do this full time and do what I do. So I appreciate all of them.
Bubba, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it.
Hey, absolutely. Thank you.